This is one of my favorite Bibles. It's actually almost 120 years old. I don't know the precise date of it. This is an old Thomas Nelson. I know you can't see it all that well, but see, there it is. I don't know the precise date, but it is from the early 20th century, and it's around 120 years old. And what I love about the King James Bible in particular is it's the same Bible your great great grandparents were reading. Well, if you're an English speaker, and Protestant, if you have a Protestant heritage. But anyways, so it's like the same words throughout the centuries. It's really cool, and this 120-year-old copy says the same thing as one I could pick up at the store today if I wanted to. And anyways, I'm reading from Ecclesiastes 3:7, and it says, "A time to read, a time to rend, and a time to sow, a time to keep silent, and a time to speak." And I've been thinking about that. Ecclesiastes is actually one of my favorite books of the Bible. I actually recently read through the whole thing, all 12 chapters on this very old Bible. I actually really enjoy reading through the Bible on this really old Bible. There's just a magical feeling about reading from a very old Bible. And this one's so beat up that I don't feel bad about reading from it because it already looks like this. So, you don't really worry about damaging it, unlike a nicer old Bible that you worry, oh my goodness, am I going to break it? Am I going to damage it? But the reason I was thinking about that passage is that it talks about how there is a time to speak and there's a time to keep silent. And for me, I think right now I'm going to enter into a brief period where I'm going to keep silent. I'm not going away forever. Like, I'm going to be back before the summer. Like, I'm going to be gone a few weeks. I mean, 6, something like that. Maybe more, but maybe even earlier. Who knows? But I'm just taking a break for a while. I don't know, just a time to think, primarily to read. The Most of the theological growth I've had since the channel began came by reading old books, and I need to read more old books. I had someone reach out in December about, could you make a list of like books about universalism? And for me, it's like I just don't think I've read enough to make it a definitive list. And that's not the reason I'm taking a break. It's just, that's just a reminder. It's like I could do more reading because reading is how I've learned all these years. And the more I read, the better apologist I am, the much better preacher and speaker I am. Just the much better I think my videos become the more I read. So I'm mostly taking a break to do reading. First and foremost, more reading of the Bible. I've mostly spent last year focusing on the Old Testament. This year, I would like to read more of the New Testament. I'm going to read through the New Testament a few times this year because the New Testament's only 260 chapters. So, even if you just read one chapter a day, you could read the whole thing in less than a year. And of course, I'm reading more than one chapter a day, so I can get the whole thing done quicker than that. So I'm planning on reading it a few times this year. Just to really kind of soak it in and absorb it some more. And primarily I'm focused on Bible reading, but also reading of books. I have more theological books I could be reading and learning from. So really just to read. I need to read more than I already do because I've become a much better apologist when I go back to the past and dig up all the good stuff from the past. And it's because of all this reading that I know this channel will not die anytime soon. Because, I know I'm going to still be making videos well into the future. Because there's so much to talk about, particularly with history. I mean, there's so much to talk about with the Universalist denomination. There's so many great Universalists of the 18th and 19th century, both American and European, to talk about. There's the medieval Universalists, there are the early church Universalists. There's, of course, so much more to talk about Universalism in the Bible. There's just so much to talk about when it comes to Universalist history alone that will most certainly keep this channel alive for a long time, just history alone, and just biblical apologetics. Unfortunately, it's me and only a few others that are actually doing this work of good biblical Universalist apologetics online, particularly on YouTube, which is very sad. But, I do feel a sense of even a duty to keep going because there just aren't many more people doing this. But I do genuinely love what I do. If I truly came to despise it, I would quit. But I do like what I do with this channel. And I have all intents of continuing this channel. into the future. But part of the way I can keep this channel going is if I take a period of rest like this. Primarily just focus on reading and prayer, theology, and fasting, just to become wiser. Pray to the Lord for wisdom, as it says in James, and to become wiser, to become holier. Holiness and happiness, as we teach as universalists. So that's what I'm working on. Just more study, the betterment and the improvement of my mind and my body as well. I've been regularly walking, for instance, which is, well, swimming's the best exercise you can do, but walking's pretty good for you. I've been doing more regular, even some brisk walking. So the betterment of my body as well. I was trying to eat a better diet, but primarily I'm focused on the betterment of my mind right now. And I just a period of rest I think is just best for me. I love the channel though, and I'm not going anywhere. In fact, the email missionaryuniversals@gmail.com, you can find it at my channel page or at the website. That will still be there. So if you have more churches for the map, or sometimes people reach out with theological questions, I'll be there. I might take a few days to answer because I don't check it every day, but I will eventually get back to you, and I'll still be there on that front. But I'm just taking a break from videos for a while, just because, once again, I'm just taking a period of rest. So I'm not going anywhere too long. I'm just taking a brief rest, few weeks, few months, just to study and learn. And I don't know, I just felt like I couldn't crank out any more videos because I don't like making mediocre videos. Like when the channel first started, I could make a filler video and not feel too bad about it. But now I just don't want to make filler videos anymore. I don't. I'm tired of filler. I don't want to make a filler video. If I'm going to make a video, I want to actually I put my, I put some of my soul into it. And that's what I like to do. I don't like to make a filler video. Of course, the problem is YouTube wants you to crank out videos. But of course, I'm not going to do that because I'm not a machine and I can't, and really I won't. Like I don't make the YouTube shorts because I mean, it's just pointless because, if you're making YouTube shorts, that's catering to the short form audience. And it's like YouTube is structured so ridiculously where, it's really hard to cater both the short form and long form because those are usually different people watching those. So it's hard to do that. So I focus on long form because I think short form content is ruining people's attention spans and is just wasting a lot of time, really. So I focus on long videos like this, and that's what I'll continue to do in the future. So I kind of know I'm not really going to ever be a very big channel. I mean, maybe after years I could have a few thousand subscribers. I mean, that's not so crazy after years and years and years, but I'm never going to be big. I almost certainly will never be big in views. I mean, a lot of videos I make don't even have 100 views. Many do, but some of them don't. And I just, I'm not making videos for the algorithm. I'm making them for the people. And, it is what it is. So yeah, I'm just taking a break for a while just to study and learn and, come back and hopefully make some better videos. Because, the more I learn, the more I can teach, really. So yeah, I'm just taking a break for a while and yeah, I'll be back. And yeah, I just think it's really in the air right now. I've noticed that a lot of channels are actually doing this. I was thinking about doing this even before I noticed a lot of people were doing it, but I just think 2026 people are finally fed up with technology, which I'm very happy about because I've always been a Luddite. Like I put off getting a smartphone until I was 16, where I was kind of forced to do it. And after I get done with schooling, because a lot of schools you have to have them for school stuff, I mean, if I can, I don't know about the career situation, but if I can have a career situation where I don't need one, I would like to get rid of it and just go to a flip phone, and that's kind of my plan. So I've always been a Luddite, and I always have, and I think finally in 2026 it's finally cool to be a Luddite. I think a lot of people are like, maybe we were on to something about technology. Too much technology is a bad thing, and definitely, I think that's kind of in the air right now. I think a lot of people are, detoxing from the internet and taking a break. And I'm not having a complete break from the internet, but I definitely should focus more on reading and thinking. I think we're actually going to enter into a renaissance. I mean, I'm not a pessimist. I actually think the future is bright. Not the near future. The next 5 years aren't going to be great, but I think further down the road, the next few decades, I think the world will be a better place. I really do. I know most people in my generation are such pessimistic and miserable people. Well, really online, things are just people are very different outside in the real world. But at least online, people are such pessimistic, miserable people, especially my generation. They're just so bloody miserable. And they always say, oh, it's the economy. And I just don't buy that because if you were an American living between about the Civil War and World War II, a bad economy was normal for you. Bad economic depressions and stuff were normal. For instance, the 1870s. Before we called the Great Depression of the 1930s the Great Depression, we called the Depression of the 1870s the Great Depression, and then it became the Long Depression. I know in 1893 there was a big crash, and there were other crashes too in the late 19th century in America. I know in 1907 there was a big crash. I know in 1921 there was a big crash. Of course, we had the famous Great Depression. So a bad economy was very normal. And if you actually study America in the 1880s and 1890s, they had a lot of same problems we have today. And I really do think, fundamentally, the real reason my generation is so miserable is not the bad economy, though that definitely helps. It's the fact that we've abandoned our God. We're the most secular generation ever. And I'm convinced of that because, at least in the 19th century, in the early 20th century, people still had something called common decency. And that is mostly evaporated today. Any sense of common decency has become increasingly rare. It's not completely gone, and I pray it makes a comeback. But just common decency has faded away, and I think that's a big reason why things are the way they are. And I think really we need to turn back to Christ. And another passage actually from Ecclesiastes. Why I'm here. I've been thinking about this passage in Ecclesiastes. It's very, I really like it, and it really spoke to me. I really like Ecclesiastes. I think I mentioned that I've read through Ecclesiastes in one sitting on this little Bible here because it's really magical to read out of an old Bible. I don't know if you've ever read out of like a really old Bible, but like sitting down and reading out of one, it's a very magical experience. But anyways, Ecclesiastes 7:10, say not thou, what is what is the cause that the former days were better than these, for thou dost not inquire wisely concerning this. That's over 2,000 years ago, and King Solomon's saying, hey, don't complain about how things were better in the past. And a lot of people do that today, especially my generation. We're always like, oh, well, we were cheated out of a better world. Americans who lived in the late 20th century, they had this great economy and this good life, and we were cheated out of that. But I think it's very important to remember what he says in Ecclesiastes. Don't inquire about how much better things were in the past. It's not out of wisdom you ask that question. And, I definitely think we're seeing great changes in the world today. And I'm actually an optimist. I actually think that goodness will prevail. As an historian, I'm an amateur historian. I'm studying history in college. And, that's what I'm thinking about getting a degree in. But anyways, about history, I study history a lot. As a historian, we see the cycles of history, and we always see this cycle of good times make people weak and immoral. Really, the cycle we see in Judges, and bad, and people forsake God and religion, and then the bad times come because we forgot our morality, and people stopped being good and became evil, and became corrupt. And we've always been corrupt, but they become more corrupt and they've lost their morality. And then the bad times come. But the good thing about history is that the bad times don't last forever. The good times don't last forever. That's the sad part. Though they can be massively extended by wise governance and maintaining a religious population. But the bad times will come to an end, and eventually the good times will return. And I don't believe we're at the end of the world. I think the Great Commission still has more to be done. So I personally don't think we're at the end of the world. I could be wrong, but I don't think Jesus will come back in my lifetime. I could be wrong, but I don't think he will. And I think the world still has more time to go on, and I think we as Christians should continue to focus on building the kingdom of God on earth and spreading the gospel. Um, so that's kind of where I'm at. I know it's a bit of a tangent from where I was about, um, where I was about, about talking about the channel, but I just noticed a change of people's spirit. A lot of people are tired of the internet. A lot of people are returning to religion, and I think we're seeing a great change in people's spirits. And I think we will see good things, good changes. I think the world will. I know a lot of people are like living in our current day. Oh, things are horrible. They'll never get better. But I believe things will get better. I know some people might call me a naive fool. I know some people may say, "Oh, well, it's just because you're young," but that's not what's cool in my generation. To be a 20-something-year-old man today, or even a woman, just really to be a 20-something-year-old today, is to be depressed and miserable on average, and to be very pessimistic about the future. So it's not some kind of naive, rose-tinted young man optimism. I'm actually going against the grain there by actually stating I think the world will be a better place, and I think we should try to live our lives morally and try to build a better world for our children and grandchildren, because I do think a better world is possible. I know that seems disconnected from me taking a break for a few weeks or months, but I do think that a lot of people are doing something similar, and I think it will reap good results in the future. So that's all I got to say for now. Really, just continue to read old books. I highly recommend read the lives of the old Universalists. John Murray's biography is great. If you look up the historical sites on our map, my map, the historical sites, they're yellow. I've linked many different books and things on the historical sites. Read John Murray's biography, read Ella Hannah Winchester's biography, read George de Venneville's biography, read Thomas Barnes' biography, read the old Universalists, the 18th and the 19th centuries. There's so much rich stuff there. Read the old Universalists, and of course, most importantly of all, read your Bible, and just pray and fast, and God will guide you through these hard times. That's all I got to say today. Thank you for watching. Thank you all so much for being such a great audience. I think the biggest reason I will keep going is just because y'all are such awesome people. I get a lot of hate comments from people who think I'm a heretic and I'm going to hell, but really just talking with a lot of y'all are really cool folks. For what I've seen, y'all are very nice people. Very much a lot of y'all strike me as very God fearing, Bible believing folk, and I wish you the best. And do keep me in your prayers, both this period in my life, mentally, physically. And physically, I've had some physical ailments, nothing too severe, but the last few months I've suffered from some physical ailments, and I'd be much obliged if you kept me in your prayers. Anyways, thank you for watching. God bless. Christ will conquer, and I'll see you soon.